lineage of. So, there is Dhruv Maharaj. Actually, initially, yes, there is Dhruv Maharaj. And then in Dhruv Maharaj's lineage itself, after a few kings after Dhruv Maharaj, King Prithu appears. So Prithu Maharaj appears, who is another great soul. And then after Prithu, then there are few more kings. And then finally we come to King Prachini Barhi. And he's actually a fruitive worker. So so there are four types of yoga typically that are discussed in within the Gita and in general within the Vedic fold. The first one is the path of karma yoga, or the path of action, where we try to detach from the fruits of our actions, and then that's how we try to get away from the karmic reaction involved in the action. So that is one type of yoga, karma yoga, that is the path of action. In the path of in karma yoga, we still act, and the senses are involved, right? And then in case of, then one level higher is jnana yoga, right? In jnana yoga, the senses are not involved, but the now the mind the now the pursuit of knowledge comes into play. That is the intelligence, right? So the intelligence is involved, and the senses and activity ceases in the path of jnana yoga. There is no more activity, and then there is a pursuit of knowledge, and through that knowledge one tries to discriminate about the world, and through that discrimination, through that process of neti, one tries to develop detachment from the world. Hmm. And then higher than that is ashtanga yoga, or dhyana yoga also they call it. Actually, it's called dhyana yoga, and dhyana yoga has two parts. Initially, when one starts doing dhyana yoga, it's called as hatha yoga. Hatha yoga is what is very famous in the yoga, yoga terminologies these days. That is like the bodily exercises for bodily fitness. And then that is actually the initial part of dhyana yoga. Then after that comes this one, ashtanga yoga. Ashtanga is 8 steps, right? And in this, now again the mind is brought to a standstill, and the intelligence is again in use, but then everything is brought to a standstill, and one tries to experience the Paramatma in one's heart. That is the ultimate perfection of dhyana yoga, right? So the ultimate perfection of karma yoga is you become what you call it, liberated from the karmic reactions, right? And then the ultimate goal of jnana yoga is you go to Brahma Jyoti, or the light that emanates from the Lord, right? We become like a speck of that light. That is the ultimate aim of jnana yoga. And then ashtanga yoga is where we try to uh, perceive the Paramatma in our heart. And then finally comes bhakti yoga, the culmination of all yogic paths, right? Prabhupada has written a book called The Perfection of Yoga, right? He's referring to bhakti yoga over there. So in bhakti yoga, there is love and devotion, right? The heart is involved. In karma yoga, the senses are involved. In jnana yoga, intelligence is involved. In dhyana yoga, the mind is involved. But in bhakti yoga, the heart is involved, and we try to love. We try to repose our loving propensity towards the supreme personality of Godhead. Right? Now, what happens is the path of bhakti yoga is like an elevator. So this yoga system is often considered as a ladder. So one is actually not even the yogic path. One is a karma kandi, right? A karma kandi is just who follows Vedic rituals and ceremonies to just gain heavenly planets and fruitive activity. There is no spirituality involved. He doesn't care about any higher goal. And then above that, when he gets frustrated, he thinks, okay, I want disentanglement from all these karmic reactions. Then comes to the process of karma yoga, and then if one is lucky, one really strives very hard, then jnana yoga. Then again, one strives really hard, then dhyana yoga. But then, so this is like a ladder, very, very tedious ladder. But bhakti yoga is like an elevator. Now, the wonderful part about this elevator of bhakti yoga is that you can get onto that elevator from any part, like any step. You can be a karma kandi, you can be a karma yogi, you can be a jnana yogi, you can be a dhyana yogi, or you can be anyone, right? You can, but If you get that elevator of bhakti yoga, your elevation is very swift and guaranteed, right? And there are examples of every every level culminating in, or rather persons at each of these rungs, they taking to bhakti yoga and getting onto the bhakti yoga elevator. So in this case, King Prachini Barhi, he is the example of someone who is involved in karma kand, or karma kand or karma yoga also, in to some extent, who got directly enlightened in bhakti yoga by Narad Muni. So this is that chapter. And so it's a very beautiful chapter, and a very heavy, also heavily technical. And Prabhupada goes into a lot of details about sense gratification, about various things about grihastha life versus grihamedi life, about pravritti marg and nivritti marg, and so on. So it's very technical and heavy in that sense. And but it's a necessity. Narad Muni gave that knowledge to Prachini Barhishat, and Prabhupada is giving that knowledge to us. And so it's essential for us to develop that. It's a part of the journey of us developing the consciousness to go into the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, right? So yeah, that's enough of a background, and we'll get into the chapter now. So yeah, as always, we'll do. So there are 62 verses in this chapter, and so we'll do like 15, 15, 15, and 17. So yeah, let me hide the purports. Yes, Nupurma, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna, Guruji. Thank you, Guruji. Guruji, can you hear me well?
Yes.
Okay. Next one. The great sage Maitreya continued speaking to Vidura. My dear Vidura, in this way, Lord Shiva instructed the sons of King Barishat. The sons of the king also worshipped Lord Shiva with great devotion and respect. Finally, Lord Shiva became invisible to the princes. All the Prajeta princes simply stood in the water for 10,000 years and recited the prayers given to them by Lord Shiva. While the princes were undergoing severe austerities in the water, their father was performing different types of fruitive activities. At this time, the great saint Narada, master and teacher of all spiritual life, became very compassionate upon the king and decided to instruct him about spiritual life. Narad Muni asked King Prachina Varishat, my dear king, what do you desire to achieve by performing these fruitive activities? The chief aim of life is to get rid of all miseries and enjoy happiness. But these two things cannot be realized by fruitive activity. The king replied, O great soul, Narada, my intelligence is entangled in fruitive activities. Therefore, I do not know the ultimate goal of life. Kindly instruct me in pure knowledge so that I can get out of the entanglement of fruitive activities.
Sorry. Yeah.
Those who are interested only in a so called dutiful life, namely, remaining as a householder, entangled by sons and a wife, and searching after wealth, think that such things are life's ultimate goal. Such people simply wander in different types of bodies throughout this material existence without finding out the ultimate goal of life. The great Saint Narad said, O ruler of the citizens, my dear king, please see in the sky those animals which you have sacrificed without compassion and without mercy in the sacrificial arena. All these animals are awaiting your death so that they can avenge the injuries you have inflicted upon them. After you die, they will angrily pierce your body with iron horns. In this connection, I wish to narrate an old history connected with the character of a king called Puranchana. Ruji, how do you pronounce that?
Puranjana.
Puranjana. Okay, thank you. Please try to hear me with great attention. My dear king, once in the past lived a king named Puranjana who was celebrated for his great activities. He had a friend named Avijanata, the unknown one. No one could understand the activities of Avi Janata. King Puranjana began to search for a suitable place to live, and thus he traveled all over the world. Even after a great deal of traveling, he could not find a place just to his liking. Finally, he became morose and disappointed. King Puranjana had unlimited desires for sense enjoyment. Consequently, he traveled all over the world to find a place where all his desires could be fulfilled. Unfortunately, he found a feeling of insufficiency everywhere. Once, while wandering in this way, he saw on the southern side of the Himalayas, in a place called Bharatvarsha, India, a city that had 9 gates all about and was characterized by all auspicious facilities. That city was surrounded by walls and parks, and within it were towers, canals, windows, and outlets. The houses there were decorated with domes made of gold, silver, and iron. The floors of the houses in that city were made of sapphire, crystal, diamonds, pearls, emeralds, and rubies. Because of the luster of houses in the capital, the city was compared to the celestial town named Bhogavati.
Thank you, Ma. I think Vrinda Gopi Mataji and Samaksh Prabhu had raised their hand. You can go ahead for Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Prabhu. From text 17, Prabhuji.
No, 16.
Okay. In that city, there were many assembly houses, street crossings, streets, restaurants, gambling houses, markets, resting places, flags, festoons, and beautiful parks. All these surrounded the city. On the outskirts of that city were many beautiful trees and creepers encircling a nice lake. Also surrounding that lake were many groups of birds and bees that were always chanting and humming. The branches of the trees standing on the bank of the lake received particles of water carried by the spring air from the falls coming down from the icy mountains. In such atmosphere, even the animals of the forest became non-violent and non-envious like great sages. Consequently, the animals did not attack anyone. Over and above everything was the cooning of the cuckoos. Any passengers any passenger passing along the path was invited by that atmosphere to take rest in that nice garden. While wandering here and there in that wonderful garden, King Puranjana suddenly came in contact with a very beautiful woman who was walking there without any engagement. She had 10 servants with her, and each servant had hundreds of wives accompanying him. The woman was protected on all sides by a five-hooded snake. She was very beautiful and young, and she appeared very anxious to find a suitable husband. The woman's nose, teeth, and forehead were all very beautiful. Her ears were equally very beautiful and were bedecked with dazzling earrings. The waist and hips of the woman were very beautiful. She was dressed in a yellow sari with golden belt. While she walked, her ankle bells rang. She appeared exactly like a denizen of heavens. With the end of her sari, the woman was trying to cover her breasts, which were equally round and well placed side by side. She again and again tried to cover them out of shyness while she walked exactly like a great elephant. Puranjana, the hero, became attracted by the eyebrows and smiling face of the very beautiful girl and was immediately pierced by the arrow of her lusty desires. When she smiled shyly, she looked very beautiful to Puranjana, who, although a hero, could not refrain from addressing her. My dear lotus eyed, Kindly explain to me where you are coming from, who you are, and whose daughter you are. You appear very chaste. What is the purpose of your coming here? What are you trying to do? Please explain all these things to me. My dear Lotus Eyed, who are those 11 strong bodyguards with you? And who are those 10 specific servants? Who are those women following the 10 servants? And who is the snake that is preceding you? My dear beautiful girl, you are exactly like the goddess of fortune, or the wife of Lord Shiva, or the goddess of learning, the wife of Lord Brahma. Although you must be one of them, I see that you are loitering in this forest. Indeed, you are silent as the great sages. Is it that you are searching after your own husband? Whoever your husband may be, simply by understanding that you are so faithful to him, he will come to possess all opulence. I think you must be the goddess of fortune, but I do not see the lotus flower in your hand. Therefore I am asking you where you have thrown that lotus. O great fortunate one, it appears that you are none of the women I have mentioned, because I see that your feet are touching the ground. But if you are some women of this planet, you can, like the goddess of fortune, who accompanied by Lord Vishnu increases the beauty of the Vaikuntha planet, also increase the beauty of this city by associating with me. You should understand that I am a great hero and a very powerful king on this planet. Certainly, your glancing upon me today has very much agitated my mind. Your smile, which is full of shyness, but at the same time lusty, is agitating the most powerful Cupid within me. Therefore, O most beautiful one, I ask you to be merciful upon me.
Thank you, Prabhu. I think Gaur Kumar Prabhu, you had raised your hand.
Yes, Prabhu. My
Go ahead.
dear girl, your face is so beautiful with your nice eyebrows and eyes and with your bluish hair scattered about. In addition, very sweet sounds are coming from your mouth. Nonetheless, you're so covered with shyness that you do not see me face to face. I therefore request you, my dear girl, to smile and kindly raise your head to see me. Narada continued, my dear king, when Puranjana became so attracted and impatient to touch the girl and enjoy her, the girl also became attracted by his words and accepted his request by smiling. By this time, she was certainly attracted by the king. The girl said, O best of human beings, I do not know who has begotten me. I cannot speak to you perfectly about this, nor do I know the names or the origin of the associates with me. O great hero, we only know that we are existing in this place. We do not know what will come after. Indeed, we are so foolish that we do not care to understand who has created this beautiful place for our residence. My dear gentlemen, all these men and women with me are known as my friends, and the snake, who always remains awake, protects this city even during my sleeping hours. So much I know. I do not know anything beyond this. O killer of the enemy, you have somehow or other come here. This is certainly great fortune for me. I wish all auspicious things for you. You have a great desire to satisfy your senses, and all my friends and I shall try our best in all respects to fulfill your desires. My dear Lord, I have just arranged the city of 9 gates for you so that you can have all kinds of sense gratification. You may live here for 100 years, and everything for your sense gratification will be supplied. How can I expect to unite with others who are neither conversant about sex nor capable of knowing how to enjoy life while living or after death. Such foolish persons are like animals because they do not know the process of sense enjoyment in this life and after death. The women continued, in this material world, a householder's life brings all kinds of happiness in religion, economic development, sense gratification, and the begetting of children, sons, and grandsons. After that, one may desire liberation as well as material reputation. The householder can appreciate the results of sacrifices which enable him to gain promotion to superior planetary systems. All this material happiness is practically unknown to the transcendentalists. They cannot even imagine such happiness. The women continued, according to authorities, the householder life is pleasing not only to oneself, but to all the forefathers, demigods, great sages, saintly persons, and everyone else. A householder's life is thus beneficial. Oh, my dear hero, who in this world will not accept a husband like you? You are so famous, so magnanimous, so beautiful, and so easily gotten. O mighty armed, who in this world will not be attracted by your arms, which are just like the bodies of serpents? Actually, you relieve the distress of husbandless women like us by your attractive smile and your aggressive mercy. We think that you are traveling on the surface of the earth just to benefit us only. The great sage Narada continued. My dear king, those two, the man and the woman, supporting one another through mutual understanding, entered that city and enjoyed life for 100 years. Many professional singers used to sing about the glories of King Puranjana and his glorious activities. When it was too hot in the summer, he used to enter a reservoir of water. He would surround himself with many women and enjoy their company. Of the 9 gates in that city, 7 were on the surface and 2 were subterranean. A total of 9 doors were constructed, and these led to different places. All the gates were used by the city's governor.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Um, so Nitya Mataji and Ritesh Prabhu have raised.
Yeah,
Yeah, any one of you can go.
I'll go.
Yeah.
My dear king, of the 9 doors, 5 led to the eastern side, toward the eastern side, 1 led toward the northern side, 1 led toward the southern side, and 2 led toward the western side. I shall try to give the names of these different doors. The 2 gates named Kadyota and Avirmukhi were situated facing the eastern side, but they were constructed in one place. Through these 2 gates, the king used to go to the city of Vibarajita, accompanied by a friend whose name was Dhuman. Similarly, in the east, there were 2 sets of gates, namely Nalini and Nalini, and these were also constructed in one place. Through these gates, the king, accompanied by a friend named Avaduta, used to go to the city of Saurabha. The 5th gate, situated on the eastern side, was named Mukhya, or the chief. Through this gate, accompanied by his friends named Rasagya and Vipana, he used to visit 2 places named Bahudana and Apana. The southern gate of the city was known as Pitruhu, and through that gate, King Puranjana used to visit the city named Dakshina Panchala, accompanied by his friend Strutadhara. On the northern side was the gate named Devahu. Through that gate, King Puranjana used to go with his friend Srutadhara to the place known as Uttara Panchala. On the western side was a gate named Asuri. Through that gate, King Puranjana used to go to the city of Gramaka, accompanied by his friend Durmada. Another gate on the western side was known as Nirti. Puranjana used to go through this gate to the place known as Vaishasha, accompanied by his friend Lubdaka. Of the many inhabitants of this city, there are two persons named Nirvak and Pesaskrit. Although King Puranjana was the ruler of the citizens who possessed eyes, he unfortunately used to associate with these blind men. Accompanied by them, he used to go here and there and perform various activities. Sometimes he used to go to his private home with one of his chief servants, the mind, who was named Vishuchina. At that time, illusion, satisfaction, and happiness used to be produced from his wife and children. Being thus entangled in different types of mental concoction and engaged in fruitive activities, King Puranjana came completely under the control of material intelligence and was thus cheated. Indeed, he used to fulfill all the desires of his wife, the queen. When the queen drank liquor, King Puranjana was also engaged in drinking. When the queen dined, he used to dine with her. And when she chewed, King Puranjana used to chew along with her. When the queen sang, he also sang. Similarly, when the queen cried, he also cried. And when the queen laughed, he also laughed. When the queen talked loosely, he also talked loosely. When the queen walked, the king walked behind her. When the queen would stand still, the king would also stand still. And when the queen would lie down in bed, he would also follow and lie down with her. When the queen sat, he would also sit. When the queen heard something, he would also follow her to hear the same thing. When the queen saw something, the king would also look at it. And when the queen smelled something, the king would follow her to smell the same thing. When the queen touched something, the king would also touch it. And when the dear queen was lamenting, the poor king also had to follow her in lamentation. In the same way, when the queen felt enjoyment, he also enjoyed. And when the queen was satisfied, the king also felt satisfaction.
Can complete the chapter, Mataji.
Oh,
One last verse, yeah.
oh, okay. In this way, King Puranjana was captivated by his nice wife and was thus cheated. Indeed, he became cheated in his whole existence in the material world. Even against the poor, foolish king's desire, he remained under the control of his wife, just like a pet animal that dances according to the order of its master. Sorry, Ritesh Prabhu, I thought the was 79. Sorry.
Fine. Yeah.
Thank you, Mataji. Thank you, everyone, those who read. We'll just do some prayers. Om Jnanatimirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupaha Kadamayyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guroho Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagarjatam Sahagana Raghunathanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhan Vitamscha Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Presthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Desha Tarine नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नामिने गौरत्विषे नमः हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधो दीनबंधो जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी श्री राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिय वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिंधुभ्य एव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवास आदि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. So yes, so we'll begin the discussion on this chapter. So as we all may have imagined, this Puranjan, this story of Puranjan is actually an allegorical story. So it's like it's like an analogy kind of a thing. So Narad Muni is trying to tell the story of the of King Prachini Barhi himself through the story of Puranjan, right? So we'll do like we'll quickly have some questions like kind of quiz questions. So who like if we compare Puranjan and the city of nine gates and the lady and the 10 bodyguards, 11 bodyguards actually, and the servants of those bodyguards, if we consider all of this as as a human being, right? So who is Puranjan in that case? Any guesses? Wait, what did I do? Who is Puranjan? Okay, chat. So yes, the soul, right? And then who is Avidnyata? This is very interesting. So here it says in one of the verses, where is that? So Puranjan was always with Avidnyata, and nobody could understand Avidnyata. It says here.
Paramatma.
Yes, thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. Yes, that was Avidnyata. And who was now? Yeah, this is a little difficult. Who was the lady? Like what does the lady signify in this pastime? City is the body. Yes, yes. Lady. So mind for the lady. Close enough. Actually, it's the intelligence. The lady. Okay, Nupur is asking, I was wondering why Avidnyata was mentioned only in one verse. Probably the reason is that Narad Muni is trying to convey the life of a fruitive worker, a person who is engaged in total sense gratification. So that is why Avidnyata is mentioned only once, and maybe in the so this allegory actually goes on for a few more chapters, and it's a whole big story actually. This is just the introduction of the city, and then there are many things happen. The city gets attacked, and yeah, it's just very interesting in the subsequent chapters too. Yeah, we'll probably maybe Avidnyata comes back in during those chapters. But yeah, so that is so who is the lady? So Samaksh Prabhu Vrinda Gopi Mataji said mind, but it's not mind. So they say here it's written that the lady is actually intelligence. So the lady is the intelligence, and let me go to this verse. Uh, yes, the body is already compared to a beautiful garden. Then yeah. The woman who represents intelligence was searching after her husband. This indicates that the intelligence cannot act without consciousness. Okay, so now that the woman is said to be the intelligence, now what? Who are the 11 bodyguards? Is the answer here? No, it's not here. Or oh, it's yeah, it is not here. Yes. Who are the 11 bodyguards? Yes, 5 plus 5 plus 1. 5 working senses, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, sorry, 5 knowledge acquiring senses, and yeah, 5 working and 5 knowledge acquiring, and then 1 is the
Mind.
mind. Yes. So yes, and that is the that those are the bodyguards, right? And then there is a 5 hooded serpent that is protecting, and that 5 hooded serpent is signifies the 5 kinds of life air: prana, pana, vyana, udana, samana. So in this way, this is a whole setup that it's like the plot that Narad Muni is creating over here, and then he uses this plot, and through the intelligence, the Puranjan, who is the spirit soul, is trying to enjoy. And at one point, it also says, by the way, there are these 11 bodyguards, and then there were all these wives of the bodyguards. It says the wives were accompanying these bodyguards. So who were those wives? Like, what do they signify? Easy, it's easy, right? Since the servants are senses and the mind, then subjects,
Thoughts,
thoughts. What do the senses engage with?
sense objects.
Ah, yes. So all these wives are, and there are hundreds and so many wives apparently to these bodyguards. So all these wives, they signify the sense objects, and so the sense objects, and then the senses are the 11 bodyguards, then and the mind, and then there is the intelligence, and then there is the spirit soul, right? Who is falsely identifying with the intelligence, and whatever follows, and then there is the avidnyata, who is the Paramatma, right? And then
So,
there is the,
who are the soldiers, Prabhu? There are these hundreds of soldiers, right? I thought
oh,
somewhere the thoughts come actually, the multitude of thoughts. Uh,
okay, let me check. Let me wait. Why?
Vaguely remember that the thoughts are connected to the mind and
Yeah.
there are innumerable thoughts, and those thoughts are the soldiers. I could be wrong, but you can correct
Oh no,
me.
no. Let's check. Soldiers, guards.
There are hundreds of people following this 10 specific servants. You go down one more verse. Sorry, I don't want to take too much time on this. I could be
No, no,
wrong.
no. It's fine. It's therefore okay. Let's search for thoughts only, maybe.
Okay, Prabhu, you can ignore it.
I'll find out. I'll find out.
Sure, Prabhu, you can ignore it for now. You can continue, please.
Yeah. So yes, so that is and the city of the nine gates is the body, is the body, and then just like the body has nine holes, so like that the city has nine gates, and then so that is depicted by this picture over here, the kingdom of Puranjan, right? So all these names are there, right? Nalini and Nalini are the nostrils. Then there is Pitrahu, which is the right ear, and there is Devahu, which is the left ear, and then there is Khadyota, right eye, and yeah, and so on. All these technical names, but essentially they signify some part of the body of Puranjan, and yeah. So we use different kind of senses for different activities. Similarly, that is so like Preshaka, right? No, sorry, Preciouskara and Nirvak, right? So it says that Preciouskara and Nirvak, Puranjan goes to various places with these two things, with these two friends, or yeah. So like that, it signifies the spirit soul traveling to various places with the hands and legs, right? So like that, all these signify the senses and their activities. So anyway, this is like the plot of the story of King Puranjan. Now moving on to the theme, right? That I was trying to extract themes out of this, and there are many themes actually. As I mentioned earlier, that Prabhupada talks a lot about sense gratification, especially sex life, and how it is entangling and things like that. Because this whole story is about that. Puranjan is getting attracted to this lady, and then they are enjoying sense gratification together. And then like that, Prabhupada goes into details about how yan maithunadi grihamedi sukham hitucham pumsastriyo mitoni bhavametam tayor midoridaya granthi mahu, how that causes attachment and so on. So but anyway, moving on to the first theme, like there are some other themes also that come out very nicely in this chapter. So one of the things that happens is initially, now Narad Muni, so it is Prabhupada writes in the purport that Prachetas have already gone. They have received the mercy of Lord Shiva in the form of that prayer. And the ancestors of this king Prachini Barhi are great souls like Dhruv Maharaj, Prithu Maharaj, and so on, right? But this king Prachini Barhi was engaged in fruitive activity, karma kandi, fruitive activities without any regard for any higher, no athato Brahma Jitnyasa. So there was no Brahma Jitnyasa, no inquiry into higher truths. Therefore, Narad Muni took compassion upon him, and he went to preach to him. And that's where he started this story. So the year in this purport, it says, even though King Prachini Bahishat was engaged in fruitive activity, the great sage Narada appeared before him. The king was very fortunate to be able to associate with Narada, who enlightened him in spiritual knowledge. It is the duty of all saintly persons to follow in the footsteps of Narad Muni and travel all over the world to every country and village just to instruct illusioned persons about the goal of life and to save them from the entanglement of karma bandha or fruitive activities. So Prabhupada is writing here about preaching, that we as devotees and as followers of Lord Chaitanya, we should all preach in some way or the other. And it's interesting. I was reading this book by Bhurijan Prabhu and The Art of Teaching. I was just in the beginning pages. I didn't read it. I didn't go too much into it. I should probably. It's good for understanding how to bring up a kid in bhakti. But then in the initial preface or the introduction, he writes that very long ago in the Indian passports there used to be a section for the occupation of a person. Uh, Either in the passport or the United States visa, there used to be a section which said occupation. And in Prabhupada's passport, any ideas what that occupation was? I think I had asked this to some of you, but any guesses what would Prabhupada have written in that? Teacher. Yes. Yes. Teacher. What is the significance of friends? Which friends are you referring to, Prabhu?
I think Prabhuji, you answered that question. It was like the activities we do with our senses, right? The friends with the soul
Okay.
goes.
Yes, so Prabhupada had this thing. His occupation was teacher in that in his passport. So there Bhurijan Prabhu writes that following the footsteps of Prabhupada, we should all also teach Krishna consciousness to others. Right? And that translates to preaching in some form or the other. Right? And yeah, and then we have statements by Mahaprabhu like Jare dekhe tare kaho Krishna upadesh. Whoever you see, tell them about Krishna, and like that. So there are all these statements which very clearly tell us that we should try to preach. Even one of the ways we can repay the spiritual master, right, our guru, is by giving those teachings to everyone. When Prabhupada was asked multiple times, Prabhupada, how should we repay you? We have a debt, right? We all owe debts to various people, and especially to our spiritual guru, because our spiritual guru gave us the causeless mercy. It's causeless. We didn't really deserve it. So in that sense, it was causeless, but we got it, right? So we have a debt. We have a debt of gratitude to the guru, and that's why Prabhupada was asked multiple times. How should we repay that debt, Prabhupada, to you? And Prabhupada said, just preach like I preached. That way you will repay. He said two things. You first follow my teachings nicely, and then give these teachings to others. So this way, Prabhupada said that we can. So yeah, so preaching is a very important activity. Again, it's preaching is the essence, we say, right? Books are the basis, utility is the principle, purity is the force, and preaching is the essence. So now, when it comes to preaching, right, there are two thought processes in outreach, right? And this is where I want to open it up for discussion. So one thought process is we get those who are interested, right? We are like there are certain people who are inclined to spiritual life due to whatever past impressions they have, past spiritual impressions they've had, or certain upbringing, nice upbringing that they've received. So they are naturally inclined to spiritual life, right? So we get those who are interested, right? And then the other way is, now those who are interested would be very few, because Krishna says in the Gita clearly, Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschid yatati siddhaye yatatam api siddhanam kaschin mam vetti tatvatah. Out of thousands of people, one may endeavor for perfection. And out of thousands of such people who are endeavoring for perfection, hardly one knows me in truth, is what Krishna says. So there are very few people, right, who are anyway inclined towards a spiritual life. And then the other way, the second way, is to create interest. So we somehow try to create interest. There is this term called bridge preaching, right? We try to come up with certain tactics to raise interest in the audience, and then due to which they come to us, and then we try to inject Krishna consciousness slowly. right? So of course, both these have pros and cons, but yeah, I just wanted to open it up for discussion. And when we want to create interest, right, especially in number two, when we want to create interest, how far do we go to create that interest? So that is one question that can be discussed. So recently, when we do this preaching at Krishna House at Gaur Kumar Prabhu's home, and we we try to make the presentations very relatable to the audience, right? But then we have observed in the past 2 weeks, weekends, that when we do that, in fact, it happens kind of every weekend when we have something very relevant to the audience, and then you get someone in the audience who is really keen on sharing their thoughts, then that interest gets created, but then the flow gets derailed to some extent, right? So how do we draw that line? Where do we draw that line in number two, right? Or yeah, any thoughts in general about this can be yeah, are welcome. So yeah, okay, opening it up. Yes, Ritesh Prabhu.
Yeah, I was just thinking like maybe just sharing one point at a time rather than overwhelming with a lot of different topics. Just one thing that, um, yeah, that we can focus on at a point and just churn it in a way where it's uh, it's basically connected to where the person is, and yeah, basically sticking to that just one thing at a time.
Yeah,
That's one of the things I believe. Yeah,
got it. Got it. Going step by step. True, true.
yeah, that's just like, yeah, one thought. Yeah.
Yeah, no, perfectly valid, Prabhu. Perfectly valid. Yes, Nitya Mataji.
Yeah, I feel like the current format that Keshav Maharaj, SB Keshav Maharaj is following is also kind of intriguing, wherein it is opening up to the Q&A, where people can ask any kind of question and give and Maharaj tries to give a um, very two different kinds of answers. One is very relevant to the material world, and another one is relevant for the ultimate world. And and whoever can pick up these things can pick it up, and then there's food for thought on both sides. Um, I kind of like that because it's like, okay, unless there is a question or some kind of an inquisitiveness that is there for people, I think I have a feeling that it's not going to get anywhere. That's just um, my observation.
Yeah,
Otherwise,
no.
it just becomes a very like, okay, I'm just coming for prasad. That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, some inquisitiveness is needed. Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's an art also, what you mentioned. Like SB Keshav Maharaj, I would say, is like the cream of preachers that we have today. And he's like very expert at that, definitely. Yeah, but that is a very nice model to follow, that we throw everything relevant out there, and then whoever, based on their consciousness, they pick up whatever they have to, like that. Yeah, definitely an art, yeah, which as preachers should be developed. At least we should strive to develop, for sure. Yeah. Thank you, Mataji. Yes, Samaksh Prabhu, Vrinda Gopi, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah, so I was seeing two things. One is like similar to what Mataji said. I think one day Gaurav Prabhu was mentioning that Keshav Maharaj, he leaves around 45 minutes or a very good chunk of time for Q&As at the end. So sometimes I feel in the lectures, because students, their questions can be like you said, they like to share their insights, and also we can get some deviated from what we are discussing. So it's keeping it at the end, and also although it might not waste, but we might have to spend more time, but listening to them, listening to their point of view with just patience, and then, but of course, like Maharaj, just adding, like taking a good amount of time, 1 or 2 minutes, to give them the higher view or perspective, like agreeing to them, but at the same time showing them or giving them a different angle. So I think it's similar to what ma'am said, but just speaking out, thinking out loud.
Yeah, no, very true, Mataji. Good point. Good point. Yeah, I've also observed Keshav Maharaj. His talks are very, I mean, the content is very short, and then he opens it up for Q&A, and then that is true. That is true. Yeah, Vishal Prabhu, you have something.
Yeah, I was just thinking about when it comes to drawing the line, right? I feel like when it comes to our approach, right? Like, in case we want to say something, we try to make it as relatable as possible without making it like, too spiritual. But at the same time, the line usually need not be drawn by us. I feel like the listener draws the line.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can elaborate on this. So basically, sometimes a person who is even slightly interested
Mm.
will ask follow-up questions, or like, either they ask follow-up questions immediately, or they, they'll reach out to you later. But then, like, there is a certain sect of people who will listen to the entire thing and somehow strengthen their idea that what we are doing is wrong. you
Mm-hmm.
know I don't know if I'm making sense, like, so they'd already decided, like, their opinion's already made up,
Yeah.
and there's nothing which you can do to change it.
Mm.
So I feel like sometimes 9 out of 10 times people have already drawn the line,
Mm.
that they are, that, so there's no amount of outreach which will change some people.
Mm.
So uh, and the people who are willing to, like, the people who are willing to listen, any outreach is good.
Right.
That's what I was thinking. Like, if I don't know if, there's a, just like SWOT analysis, right? You have atheism on like, theism and atheism on one side, like, on either side, and you have agnostic and gnostic on let me see if I can find an image. Can I share it on the chat? Can I share? Oh yeah, I shared an image on the chat.
Yes.
Yeah, so I feel like out of the four quadrants, right? Three
Mm.
quadrants, like, a person who is a theist, any kind of outreach is good. And for an agnostic atheist who is not completely convinced, like, that, like, they have an idea, but then, like, they're not like, they don't have a strong opinion about it.
Yeah.
The create interest part works. Like, that you give something which, like, you just like throw the fishing rope, and then, like, you just like, reel them in. But then the gnostic atheist, I like, um, there's no amount of outreach that you can do that will change their opinion.
Right.
Sometimes I feel like I, like, I would say it like, I would try to explain as much as possible, but somehow they will take the conclusion that, yeah, therefore my point is correct. Like, they would agree that what they are thinking is correct.
Mm.
So in that way, we don't have to draw the line. They have already drawn the line. So, like, the listener is drawing the line and not the teacher.
It's a beautiful point, bro. Very beautiful point. So, yeah, it's just that the preacher has to detect where the line has been drawn and accordingly try to elevate. Yeah, definitely. That's a beautiful point. I'll go through that image in more detail, but yeah, I get the gist of it. It's a very nice way of thinking about it. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. There is one. So Nandini Mataji said explaining by referring to stories and then discussing about it. Yes, Nandini Mataji, that's correct. That's what we also try to do. Yeah, stories is something that is very, very attractive to hear. Even for that matter, the very pastime that we are discussing also, right? So I guess Narad Muni somewhere he understood that King Prachini, but he is not ready to listen to philosophy. So let's try to create an allegorical story here, and that's what he's doing. So definitely, stories is something we all like, um, and immediately our ears are open to hear stories and then discussing those. Definitely, very very valid point, Mataji. Thank you. Yeah. So any other thoughts on this? Okay, if not, then let's move on to the next theme. So this is something that I really found very relevant. This is in one of the purports. I think verse 12 is this is the purport of verse 12. Yeah. So here I'll read out the purport. Srila Vidyapati, a great Vaishnava poet, has sung Tatala Saikate Vari Bindu Sama Sutamita Ramani Samaje. Material sense gratification with society, friendship, and love is herein compared to a drop of water falling on a desert. A desert requires oceans of water to satisfy it. And if only a drop of water is supplied, what is its use? Similarly, the living entity is part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who, as stated in the Vedanta Sutra, is Anandamayo Bhyasat, full of enjoyment. Being part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the living entity is also seeking complete enjoyment. However, complete enjoyment cannot be achieved separate from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In his wanderings in the different species of life, the living entity may taste some type of enjoyment in one body or another. But full enjoyment of the senses cannot be obtained in any material body. Thus, Puranjan, the living entity, wanders in different types of bodies, but everywhere meets frustration in his attempt to enjoy. In other words, the spiritual spark covered by matter cannot fully enjoy the senses in any circumstance in material life. So often the analogy is given, if you take a fish out of water and you give it all the comforts that a human being has, give him a nice food or nice facilities to live and so on and so forth, the fish won't be happy unless the fish goes into water. Similarly, the fish is compared to the soul, where the soul, although the soul is attached and is searching for enjoyment in a misdirected way, because that search is misdirected, the soul never really experiences complete happiness, and that is uh, that is actually that's when. So in the typical Vedic parlance, there is this four step evolution: dharma, artha, kama, and moksha. So dharma is not in the terms of the soul's dharma, but dharma is in terms of the fruitive dharma, fruitive activities, rituals we do, right? So people do fruitive activities, and they do dharma. They follow the Vedic injunctions in order to get artha. Artha is something valuable, right? So it might mean wealth, it might mean property, and so on. And so we do dharma, we get artha. We do dharma, we get artha. And why do we get artha? We use that for kama, that is fulfilling our desires, dharma, artha, kama. So we perform our dharma, or rather our, whatever religiosity, there is pious religiosity. We get artha out of that, then we use that for fulfilling our kama. So dharma, artha, kama. We keep doing that life after life. And at one point we get frustrated. At one point, we realize that I'm not really finding that fulfillment that I was looking for, although I'm doing all this. And then we go to moksha. Moksha is when I want liberation from all this. Now I'm frustrated. I'm not finding what I need here. So let me get rid of all of this. Right? And now there is a Pancham Purushartha. So these are called as Purushartha, or human objectives, these four: Dharma, Artha, Kama, Moksha. And there is, Acharya say, the Pancham Purushartha, or the fifth Purushartha, which is the highest. It's actually Prema Pumartha Mahan, the love of God. Right? Love of God is when actually that Anandamayo Bhyasat nature of the spirit soul completely blossoms in relationship to the Supreme Lord in love and devotion. So like that. But anyway, so I was explaining this dharma artha kama moksha to one of my friends during masters, right? So he gave me a very he gave me an answer to which I was like, I didn't have any way to explain. So he said, I am not yet frustrated with dharma artha kama. So when I get frustrated, I'll inquire into higher truths, is what he had said. So it was funny because I actually I found it was genuine actually. He's like, yeah, I don't want to inquire into higher truths. I'm not frustrated yet in my endeavor to, in my pursuit of happiness. Once I'm frustrated, then maybe I'll see, right? So I was thinking, how do we answer that question? So yeah, any thoughts on this? Just a very simple and light discussion here. So should we wait? Any thoughts on this? Or is it just too obvious the answer? Yes, Nupurma, go ahead.
I have a question, Project. So, doesn't it matter like what are the boundaries of one's frustration? Somebody might get frustration in little things, and somebody might have a high tolerance for frustration.
Hmm. That is true. Yeah, it could be the case that somebody has high tolerance, and by high tolerance, I mean somebody could develop that high tolerance with things like, oh, failures are the stepping stones to success. Because the fact that I didn't get pleasure in this thing now doesn't mean that I'll not get it if I do it a little differently, right? So definitely people form various thought processes to deal with that, and yes, that is true. But then, at some point at some point, this is what I believe honestly. It may not happen during youth, it may not happen during even middle age, right? But it would surely happen towards the end when, so you've tried to form all these frameworks to label frustration as something good, some stepping stone to something else. But then you've done it so much repeatedly, and then you've realized that no, this is getting me nowhere, right? This is what I feel. I don't know, I might be wrong over here, but at some point people do realize that it's uh it's uh i- the endeavor that I did was kind of not futile, but yeah, it was not futile, but it didn't give me the kind of pleasure that I was actually looking for, the kind of higher happiness. So at that point they do realize. So yeah, somebody might develop a tolerance for frustration, but then the world is such that it will test that tolerance also. So yeah, I don't know if that answered the question, but yeah, others are. I'm happy. I mean, please share your thoughts. We are more than happy to hear your thoughts. Ritesh Prabhu, you were raising your hands.
Yeah, actually, people are sleeping here, so I'm not trying to speak, but I'll write it down. Sorry.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, bro. Yes. Any thoughts on Nupur's question, dear devotees? Anyway, any thoughts on this one though? Okay, there are some. Also, it's not about one lifetime. There is a long history. Vallabh Chaitanya Prabhu says. So this is in relation to this question, Prabhu, or the previous one?
Yeah, this one only, bro. I was thinking that this is also related to the previous question you asked, that
Yeah,
where do you draw the line?
yeah.
And if you see that, this is a like a user feedback or a customer feedback,
Mm,
that when we are selling Krishna to them, they are saying I'm not frustrated yet.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
why should even I buy your product?
True.
So which makes sense because it's a multi lifetime journey, and we cannot enforce it. It just, we can make them aware, and you never know what will spark, or they will kind of remember that frustration even through a small pain, or maybe like a large pain,
Yes.
whatever triggers that multi lifetime frustration. And then they might decide to either end their life or see what's more in life. And then I think it comes to choice that can be even like philanthropic for many people, like who do charitable work and NGOs and all those work. And for some it can be just spiritual. So I feel it's a journey, and we don't know how many steps or what steps who has taken, or you know like what is their next step.
Yeah. Beautiful, Prabhu. Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to gauge that because yeah, we don't have access to that knowledge, and yeah, we could do our part, and then yeah, we don't know what will strike, what will trigger that thought process. Yeah. Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you. And then Ritesh Prabhu, right. So one who is drowned into material enjoyment is covered and blinded to inquire for higher truth. One way is life event shakes them of their belief or pursuit. Yeah, yeah. Very true. Very true. Yeah. In some cases, we can't do anything. Like it's just, yeah, we have to just pray to Krishna that somehow give them this intelligence. And that's how Krishna will, you know, wave his magic wand and do something. But yeah.
Yeah, actually that's what Shrivas Pandit, Advaitacharya, Haridas Thakur, all of them did, right? When they were just praying that somehow, Krishna should come and just deliver all these people.
Correct. In fact, you bring up an interesting point. They not only prayed for the world, but even after Lord Chaitanya, he appeared in the world. Srivas, he was like an academic aristocrat, Nimai, right? He was like, he used to debate, and he was not interested much in spiritual life and all that. That time, Srivas Thakur would actually pray that, you know, you're such a nice person, you're so beautiful, and you're so attractive, so why don't you take to bhakti, something like that. Very true, very true. It's the prayers that bring bhakti to the soul, and that brings the soul to bhakti as well. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, thank you so much, dear devotees. Beautiful points. Now, moving on, just a few minutes, we'll quickly go through this. So there are, again, this is again related to the previous points now that I think of it. So there are two ways of human activities, Prabhupada writes. One is called Pravrutti Marg and another is called Nivrutti Marg. So Pravrutti Marg is the path of sense gratification, right? And the Nivrutti Marg is the main focus there is detachment. So we will see that some people, I mean, very rarely people are in the Nivritti mark. They are by default like detached, and they are very calm and peaceful by nature. And we give them spiritual life and they easily take it, right? But that can work the other way around also. They are so Nivrutta, they are so detached that they detach from bhakti as well. That also happens. That is one, form of human tendency. The other is pravrutti marg, or the path of experience, or the path of sense enjoyment, right? And so long back I had heard this, right? So there are two ways to spiritual realization, right? So there is one way that when we hear something, that hearing itself is enough for us to realize, like, yeah, we hear something and then that's it. We realize that, or we hear the nature of the world, and that's it. We realize that, okay, there is nothing in this world for me in terms of, my own sense enjoyment, right? Or my, in terms of my true happiness for my heart. And then there is the other category, which is most of us actually, where we hear something, we hear that this world is dukhalayam ashashvatam, we hear that there is no true happiness in this world, except when you take to spiritual life and things like that. Yet we are not, at least I am not that advanced that I can just realize it. So there is a kind of a detour for most people, and that detour is of experience. So we hear and then we experience and then we realize, right? Which again goes back to the previous two themes that we discussed about frustration, right? So for most people, that experience is needed. That experience of frustration is needed to realize that there is a higher truth, and we should inquire about it. Yeah. So anyway, this is what I had to share. Any thoughts on this? I don't have like a specific question to ask here, but any thoughts, concluding thoughts, and then we can end. Okay.
There is a third category too, Prabhuji, like someone like me who hear, experience, and still do not realize.
Oh, you're being modest. You're being modest.
No, Prabhuji.
Yeah, that the experience detour can be a little long for some people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, it's not for you, but for some, yes, I agree. So Nityamata ji is asking, so Nupur said that there is a third category also. Pravritti Marg and Nivritti Marg are the two we discussed. And there is a third category also. She said, referring to herself, that we hear, we experience, but we still don't realize. So she's just being modest, I feel. But yeah, that's what she said. Anyway, so yeah, any yeah, you all are welcome to go through this chapter at your own time and reflect on the message that Prabhupada is giving. It's a nice chapter, and we'll continue. We'll continue from next week onwards and see what happens in this city of nine gates to this individual called Puranjan, and how things end up. And yeah, so yeah, thank you very much. Any announcements, Gaur Kumar Prabhu?
No, Prabhuji, no announcements.
Yeah, so I think yeah, we are at time. So thank you very much, dear devotees. Vanchakalpatarubhyascha kripa sindhubhya eva cha patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Ananta Koti Vaishnav Vrinda ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Prabhuji, for amazing discussion.